Good afternoon, everybody, or good morning, depending on where you're joining us from. My name is Mwanja Ng'anjo. I'm the head of communications at the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation in Cape Town. Welcome to the webinar on Peace and Democracy in Africa, Media Perspectives. Media has long since been recognized as a powerful tool in shaping public opinion, providing information to citizens, as well as holding power to account. In Africa, where the countries continue to grapple with numerous challenges, including political instability, conflict, and efforts to consolidate democracy, we see that democracy and peace are actually being challenged. And therefore, there's a huge space for media to continue to play in this space in shaping the democracies that we hold dear. And therefore, this webinar today is going to look at media perspectives from different parts of the continent, as looking at issues of press freedom, media ownership, the spread of misinformation, and other issues. We'll delve into these complexities, providing a synopsis on how media can support or actually hinder peace and democracy on the continent. Therefore, these discussions on media experiences and perspectives from countries and news that the journalists across the continents have covered will aim to strengthen peace and democracy in Africa. And the event will highlight stories as well as some best practices and some experiences on how media practitioners and stakeholders on the continent can help to uphold peace and help to build democracy in Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, we're honored that today we've got an esteemed panel of speakers from across the continent. We've got Kate Lefko-Everett. She's a senior project leader on the South African Reconciliation Barometer at the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation in Cape Town. And we're also joined by Adam Alkali. He's the editor of African News Page in Nigeria. Joining us from Botswana, we've got Babuluki Semele. Babuluki is a media professional and civic activist. And also joining us directly from the field is Charles Mangwiro from Mozambique. I hope his connectivity will allow him to be with us today. And then we've also got Nande Mbekela, communications intern at the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll not take too much of your time. I'll just go through a few house rules as usual. Bear with me, there are only 3. First up, we would like to ask all the participants, as per usual, to please keep your microphones muted if you're not speaking. And secondly, for our participants, we ask that you use the chat functionality to enable you to submit your questions and comments and views on this important topic today. And then lastly, I would like to inform everyone that the webinar is being recorded and we'll be able to make it available for viewing later on. And to kick off the conversation is Kate. As I said, Kate is a senior project leader for the South African Reconciliation Barometer at the IJR. She has worked with the IJR in various capacities since 2009. And recently, she managed her 5th round of the National Reconciliation Barometer Survey in South Africa, as well as the Afrobarometer pre-election survey. Her research interests include reconciliation, social cohesion, and good governance, and she has published widely in these areas. So Kate will set the scene for us. She'll take us through a presentation that highlights the importance of media freedom as a key pillar for peace and democracy, not only in South Africa, but across the continent as well. She'll also take us through some country rankings, but also with a specific focus on South African survey results on trust in the media and the role of civil society in working together with the media for peace and democracy. Kate, over to you. I trust your presentation is ready. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mwanja and team. Unfortunately, now the Zoom is not allowing me to share the presentation since we switched over. Maybe that V can just assist in enabling that. I'm getting a message again that it's disabled at this stage. Mwanja, you're on mute as well.
V or Matt, are you able to assist with Kate's presentation? Are you able to present from your end, Veronique? V, are you able to assist with Kate's presentation? All right, so maybe Kate, you can just talk us through while we wait to present.
Sure. Thanks very much. Thanks, Mwanja, and thanks to you, the team at IJR, for inviting me to this discussion. It's really exciting to be part of such a diverse and sophisticated and experienced group of media professionals that are with us today. As Mwanja mentioned, my name is Kate Lefko-Everett. I'm the senior project leader for the South African Reconciliation Barometer at the IJR. The SARB, as we refer to the survey, is a nationally representative public opinion survey that deals with issues of social cohesion, reconciliation, and transformation in South Africa. We also, within our research and policy program, are the Southern Africa partners for the Afrobarometer, which is a continental survey, and I will refer to both of those survey findings in my presentation. As Mwanja mentioned, I thought I would just take the opportunity to kind of set the context a little bit. And, as a good starting point, I think, I'm just checking my screen to see if the presentation is up, but it hasn't gone up yet. As many of us will know and recognize in our practice, media freedom is really a bedrock of a good and functional democracy. Having a robust and free and independent media is a crucial role in a democracy in informing the public. There's an important role in terms of being a watchdog that contributes to monitoring, accountability, oversight of government, as well as, of course, of other sectors such as the private sector and even ourselves in civil society. And as I think we'll all agree, and we'll probably come out further in the discussion today, this is such an important role, and it's also a changing role given the context that we're living in with the rise of misinformation, fake news, artificial intelligence, and social media as well. Any progress with the presentation? Doesn't seem like it.
Okay, V, are you able to put up the presentation? Or Matt, is the CPE?
I can't from my side. Let me check with V. Let me just try to call her.
All right. Okay, she's busy with Charles, so I don't know if you can just try and project, but please carry on, Kate.
Sure. I did a little bit of looking at the situation of press freedom in internationally and in the African context specifically. And the reality is that press freedom is restricted in many countries around the world and in Africa as well. The 2024 World Press Freedom Index evaluated and found difficult situations and even very serious conditions with regard to press freedom in many African countries in the past year. And some of those are worsening situations that in the previous evaluation of 2023 were linked to election-related violence in many countries, efforts to control and restrict the media, and also the repression and targeting of journalists. When we look at South Africa's evaluations in terms of media freedom, and in terms of that World Press Index, World Free Press Index, which is available online and contains annual data about countries around the world, South Africa has ranked relatively well in about the top 25% or so of countries since the index has been conducted over the last 20 years. And one of the reasons is that we have a progressive constitution that guarantees freedom of expression and freedom of the press. The media landscape itself has been described as diverse, it's sturdy, and it's dynamic, and there's a relatively well-established culture of investigative journalism. And we've seen in recent years many examples of reporting that has uncovered issues of corruption, issues of state capture, issues around even the Thabo Bester escape from prison. And there's been a lot of freedom and support for that investigative journalism in South Africa, despite the fact that there's also significant resource constraints within the environment and opposition from powerful interests as well. So the fact that South Africa has done relatively well in terms of maintaining and carving out that press freedom is particularly notable, I think, and I'm speaking of South Africa as that is where we are based and my area of greatest expertise. But this is a really challenging context that the media is working within. And in South Africa, that includes direct threats to whistleblowers and efforts to constrain free speech. There's also been a lot of changes in the media and in the press itself, with reports that the industry, for example, in terms of the traditional print press, is really on the edge of what has been termed a tipping point, with very serious financial losses, shrinking newsrooms, issues that we hear about internationally as well, lots of cost cutting and basic undermining of issues around journalistic integrity. There's been really severe declines in newspaper circulation in South Africa, with most people going to online sources in order to find their news. Sorry, I'm going to try to share my slides again. It says somebody else is sharing at the moment.
Okay, I've stopped from my side. You can go on and share.
Sure. Okay, are you able to see now?
Yes, we can see it, Kate. Thanks a lot.
Okay,
Just make it full screen. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. As I was saying, there's been very serious declines in newspaper circulation, with many people opting to find their news from other sources like social media. And then, as mentioned earlier, a rise in social media content, as well as artificial intelligence, disinformation, which has been identified by the World Economic Forum as one of the biggest challenges of the year. And also kind of what's been termed the unfettered production of content that falls outside the boundaries of broadcasting regulations. So lots of people producing and releasing content, but it's not necessarily regulated in the same way that traditional media would be in terms of what is released in South Africa and elsewhere as well. There's also specific barriers to free access to the media. In recent years, that's included load shedding issues and inconsistent electricity, as well as challenges related to digital migration, limiting people's ability to gain access and participate and consume free press. Okay, just to look at some of our survey findings from the IJR. We have found in our research that there's a high degree of trust and reliance on the broadcast media in South Africa still, despite some of those challenges that I raised in the previous slide. So in the South African Reconciliation Barometer survey, we ask about confidence in a wide range of different types of public institutions. And in the past year, we found moderate levels of confidence in the SABC, which is the national broadcaster, at 57% nationally. But while that is moderate, it is still much higher than we found in other institutions. For example, there was only about 38% confidence in the Constitutional Court and 33% confidence in Parliament. And when we look closer in more detail, television and radio are still the most trusted sources of information about politics specifically, although there has been an increase in people who say that they trust and go to social media for their information about news and politics and so forth. So just to share some of the graphs of these results, as you can see on the left, we have confidence in institutions from our last survey round. You can see that the SABC media is there at the very top. They were very pleased with that result, followed by SARS and the Constitutional Court. And most other institutions that we surveyed were only about a third, around 33% levels of confidence. And on the right-hand side, we have a graph of trust in news sources. So you can see there once again that the trust is highest in radio and television, as represented by those gold and blue lines at the top, over 60%. But there has been an increase in people reporting that they trust social media as a major source of news and information as well. There's also in South Africa a significant degree of support for media freedom, and that's very widespread. And it kind of reiterates and reinforces those constitutional guarantees and the value that I mentioned earlier. So our Afrobarometer survey conducted in 2022 found that about 3/4 of all South Africans agree that the media should constantly investigate and report on government mistakes and corruption, and a similar percent, 72%, answered that the media should be free to publish any views and ideas without government interference. And again, back to the Reconciliation Barometer survey, we found that more than half of all of South Africans answered that they would oppose the government monitoring or closing social media platforms or other types of social media messaging services. And just to wrap up then, I think an important point that I wanted to close on is that there is a lot of potential for complementarity and co-creation and collaboration between civil society and the vibrant and free and independent media that we have in this country and in many other countries as well. Our work in the Research and Policy Program and the IJR more broadly really depends on us being able to access independent and accurate news and information that goes hand in hand with the policy and survey work that we do. And our mandate within the Institute also includes a role of producing and disseminating robust public opinion data. And that's a really scarce resource in South Africa and in many African countries. It's hard to get good data. We saw this particularly around election time. And so I've shared some examples here of recent media articles which have featured some of our survey results, but we really feel that there's potential for greater collaboration within within guidelines and that maintain mutual values within our independence and that can potentially increase our skills and resource efficiency and the impact of both the media and civil society as well. So just to wrap up briefly, I've shared here some links. Both the Reconciliation Barometer survey and the Afrobarometer have online data analysis portals. Those are free and accessible, and anyone can go online and use those resources to look at some of the political opinion questions that we've asked and be able to manipulate and work with the data. We've also published the survey report in 2023 and recently a policy brief on South Africa's excuse me, role in regards to media independence that's available through Afrobarometer. So thank you. I will leave it there. Thanks, Mwanja.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kate. And that was very insightful. And I like the use of the data to locate ourselves as to where we are in the media landscape. I also like the fact that you ended up at actually exploring how the media could work together with civil society a bit more closely in terms of leveraging on the resources that we have and guarding our media freedoms and upholding our peace. I will not delve too much into the presentation as we need to hear from the others, and then we can have a discussion later at the end. All right, so up next, we've got Adam Alkali joining us from Nigeria. Adam is an international award-winning journalist. He is the editor of African News Page, specializing in reporting Africa's development. Adam comes with 15 years of experience. He has worked with the African Union and its partners and is currently a strategic media advisor for GIZ. So Adam is going to speak to us on the important topic of conflict-sensitive reporting for media, which should go hand in hand to support peace building. He's going to touch on the coverage of conflict brought on by the activities of Boko Haram and bandits in the northwestern part of Nigeria. Over to you, Adam.
Oh, thank you, Mwanja. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, depending on where we are joining from. Indeed, the topic of discussion in today's webinar is a very important one. Like you said, the focus of my presentation is going to be on what is called conflict-sensitive journalism, or in other parlance, peace journalism or peace solution journalism, because of the importance of increasingly importance of the media serving as as an active player in in building peace in community beyond what the mainstream conflict reporting is, which is about talking about violence and prioritizing violent response to disputes and conflicts. So indeed, we want to see more of the conflict-sensitive or other peace journalism against the conventional reporting of conflicts, which prioritize, like I said, violence and violent groups, and violent response to disputes and and conflicts. And to do this as journalists, we have to familiarize ourselves with the tools, and strategies for conflict sensitive reporting. I know UNESCO has got a kind of handbook that it produced on this. So as journalists, we need to familiarize ourselves with this handbook and any other document, guiding document that has been produced, as a guide for us to be champions of peace and not just merely reporting events. There is this belief in the media, in certain sections of the media, that as journalists we are impartial, that the outcome of these issues do not concern us. We must see ourselves as remove ourselves from the issues we are reporting, which I don't think is progressive. As Mwanja has said, we need to adopt the advocacy and strategies of the civil society in the course of our work as journalists, and that's the only way we can contribute to peace and sustainable development on the continent, which is one of the goals and objectives of both the Agenda 2063 of the African Union and the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. So indeed, what I want to say, emphasize here, is for us as journalists to become active champions of peace and peace builders in society through conflict sensitive reporting, or what is called conflict solution journalism. Thank you, Mwanja. I don't know if you have got any follow-up questions for me.
Adam, I think we'll hold off the questions towards the end, and but for now, let's go over to Babuluki, and Babuluki is going to focus on the coverage of media and portrayal of women and youth in Botswana. We're looking at them as key populations for forging peace and enhancing democracy. Adam will certainly come back to you on the situation in northwestern part of Nigeria. Babuluki is an accomplished professional with a master's degree in international relations and currently studying for a PhD. And he has 4 years of experience as a research officer for the Parliament of Botswana and 14 years in the media industry. And he actually also founded the Youth for Gender Equality Foundation and is a Mandela Washington Fellowship alumnus. Babuluki, are you able to switch on your camera? Are you ready?
I don't know if I'm visible.
Yes, we can hear you now. Thank you.
Okay. Visibility. I'm so sorry about the visibility. Thank you so much, Mwanja. Like for the invitation and everything, and thank you for the kind introduction. I'm also proud to say that I actually managed with my PhD. I'm graduating October. My major was in politics and international relations with major in security and strategic studies. So I'm really, really proud to be part of this webinar and to share my 2 cents worth. I saw a hand up. I think am I audible?
No, it was a mistake, sorry.
Carry on, Babaluki.
Okay. My presentation is going to go along youth and women inclusion and representation in the media landscape, as well as because I believe that for us to have peace and progress and even security, we have to include women and young people as well as the marginalized communities. So in my dissertation, my focus was on the spying of journalists by the government of Botswana with the help of the Israeli government. And it was very difficult for me to go around, navigating my dissertation because I was attacked, or I was at the center of two countries that were both thinking that I am, a threat. I had to go to Israel at some point because I wanted to really see the people who are at the, behind the scenes in terms of, supplying the Botswana government with the spyware tools. And when entering Tel Aviv, I was deported immediately. And when I got back to Botswana, I was charged around 2,000 US dollar equivalents for that deportation. But at the end of the day, I'm proud to say that I managed with my PhD, and I was doing it not only for myself, but for young people of Africa, as well as for youth and women of Africa and the media of Africa. So what am I saying? I am saying that I know that to a certain degree, Botswana is seen as the model of democracy in Africa, and a lot of countries in Africa wants to copy the kind of governance and leadership style as purported by Botswana. But yes, we are ticking boxes, but in reality, the journalists in Botswana are facing the same challenges as the journalists across all the across the African continent. I'm going to cite example. We have at the moment 2 journalists that are exiled in South Africa because one of them was charged with sedation, and his sedation was merely exposing the expenditure by the president of Botswana, then the former president, and the spending was from the government cohorts. And unfortunately, that expenditure was not in any way benefiting the country, but was benefiting the family of the president, the siblings, and even the nephews. And at he was eventually charged with sedation, and then he exiled himself to South Africa. And one of the journalists, the second one, he was also charged. He was merely exposing the ill governance, because at the moment what we have in Botswana, I think it's just same across the African countries. We have members of parliament, and most of the members of parliament here in cabinet members are taken from the members of parliament. But the role of parliament is to hold the executive accountable. And it is actually difficult for the members of parliament who are cabinet members to hold the executive accountable, because they will be holding themselves accountable. And so what Daniel Kenosi did, he was actually exposing that to say, is there really independence of parliament? Is there really democracy? So he was also charged for that, and then he also exiled himself to South Africa. And then we have the third one, who was also charged for merely questioning the bills that were presented by the former president, who is now the current president of Botswana. And it was difficult for him to go on with the story, because at the end of the day, he was seen as the enemy of progress and charged. And then eventually the government gave him a role. He's now the communication consultant for one of the parastatals of the government, and therefore he's not able to progress well in terms of going with his media role. We've seen a trend here in Botswana where once you question the ruling party, no doubt I'm a member of the ruling party, but once you question the ruling party as a journalist, you are given a lucrative post either in the embassy or within the office of the president, because they are trying to, in a way, censor the media. So the journalists might not be killed in Botswana, but there's a lot of censorship, and that in a way holds peace, because it reduces the independence of media all the time. investigative journalists, we have seen one or two cases. I'm going to cite one. We had a journalist who won the investigative journalist of the year here in Botswana. And after winning that, he went to Nairobi to celebrate. He miraculously and mysteriously drowned in a pool in Nairobi. Then the second one who won an investigative journalist award, mysteriously he had a car accident, and it was coincidental that the car that collided with this car was the car driven by Botswana Defense Force, like Botswana Defense Force car. So it was just labeled as a mere a coincidence, like just a natural accident, nothing behind that. But if you have eyes and ears, you could tell that no, but this is too good to be true. And after he recovered from the hospital, he was promoted to a private secretary to a minister, and then eventually was given the deputy permanent secretary position at the office of the president. And ultimately, he's now the district commissioner. If this doesn't speak to the harassment and censoring of media in Botswana and halting peace, then I don't know what it is. So in a nutshell, I'm going to say, yes, in Botswana, we are trying, the government is trying to portray a good image, but in reality, journalists are harassed. We have seen a lot of, journalists being, like the police, the DIS, they go to the journalists, they take them to the cells. They are not charged, but at the end of the day, those journalists, once they are released, they fail to address key issues. So in closing, I just want to say, we are just like any other country in Africa. We need media independence. We need the independence of parliament. We need the independence of the civil society, and we need the independence of cabinet as well as the judiciary to foster peace in Botswana.
Thank you very much, Babuluki, for your insights on media and the media challenges that are being faced in Botswana. I'm sure we will get back to that in delving at the intricacies of what it is that we can actually do. So up next, we've got Charles Mangwiro. Charles is actually out in the field, and I think he'll speak more or less on a similar vein to Babuluki's presentation. Charles Mangwiro has been working in the media industry for 27 years, and he's acquired vast experience in broadcasting as well as online media. And he currently works as a senior editor at Radio Mozambique, English service channel in Maputo, as well as him being the Maputo-based stringer for the Voice of America. And he has worked for 11 years as Mozambique's principal correspondent of the leading global Reuters news agency and TV, as well as a backup Maputo-based reporter for BBC World Service in Mozambique. Some of his key achievements include covering breaking political, economic, conflict, and major disaster stories, as well as emerging economies, with a particular focus on agriculture in Mozambique. So in his presentation, Charles will also touch on media freedom, in specifically covering Cabo Delgado, as well as the upcoming elections in Mozambique. Charles, are we able to hear you and see you on camera, if you can? Over to you. Please try and switch on your camera as well. I know you're out in the field. Charles was struggling. He said he had to climb up a palm tree to actually get access. Charles, can you hear us? Okay, while Charles is connecting, I'm going to introduce Nande. Nande, I hope you're ready. We'll try and get back to Charles. Yeah. So Nande is a committed public relations communication specialist. She's currently based in Cape Town.
I'm here.
Institute. Okay, all right. Over to you, Charles. Sorry. I see you're up the tree for real. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking out for lions and leopards. They may jump
All
to
right.
grab
Glad to have you,
the
Charles.
phone.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Just like Babaloki was saying, in Mozambique, we have got almost a similar situation where a wave of threats against journalists dedicated to the independent coverage of the conflict, especially in Cabo Delgado. So there's been problems since 2017. And the most menacing of these threats are coming from government officials, especially in Cabo Delgado, with the top officials like the governor, who has accused journalists of working in agreement, I repeat, in agreement with the terrorists who are active in the province. The government officials there have a narrative to convince everyone that the information is very doubtful, is of doubtful origin, because from the information, it seems that the journalists are in line with the journalists. So this has been one of the reasons why
Charles, we've lost you. Maybe turn off your camera and just speak to us.
they don't want any media journalists. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Please carry on.
Yeah, this explains why the foreign media has been banned from entering Cabo Delgado. Some of our fellow local journalists have been abducted, jailed, and are missing. Now, this situation has been making us difficult to get what is happening in Cabo Delgado, the real story of Cabo Delgado. In many cases, it is told by the government officials. We don't know if the government officials now are the journalists themselves, because whatever the story they say, they don't want us to investigate or either question them about what is really going on in Cabo Delgado. They don't want us even to read the documents or the agreements they are signed with countries like Rwanda on bilateral terms, or even the SADC, the region as a whole. They don't release that information to us. So we have got two serious situations for the past 6 years now. One journalist from the local radio, community radio station, has been missing. And one of them, the second one, was arrested without charge against him, of saying that he was working against himself. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please carry on.
Now, the other situation is that the journalists who are based in Cabo Delgado, in that province themselves, they are not allowed even to talk to local people. Police, they make sure that they don't go anywhere. If they are to talk to someone, they use telephones. They are not allowed to work on the streets. And we know that Pemba is the city, the capital, the provincial capital of Cabo Delgado. So many people who are running away from the conflict are based in Pemba. So the police are patrolling the streets every day, every hour, every minute, just to make sure that no one is carrying a camera, no one is recording, no one is filming. So anyone who is seen filming or that person is arrested and face charges of reporting illegal, because they want everyone in Cabo Delgado difficult. So the same as conflict, we are seeing the same situation now in political coverage. We will be having our elections this year, but the official information is only coming from, including private newspapers and government officials, participants from the election themselves, to make sure that nothing gets to the media. I think I'm having a problem. I can stop here for other conflict or any question.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Charles. Okay. Maybe you can try and shift a little bit in your position. Yeah. Yeah. But thank you. I think we've gotten the gist of some of the challenges when it comes to reporting in Cabo Delgado. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Charles. We'll go over to Nande. I think Nande already introduced you. So over to you, Nande, in your presentation. I was saying that Nande is going to speak on her perspectives following the coverage of the elections in South Africa this year in 2024. Nande is of the view that despite the efforts that the South African media houses to provide fair and balanced reporting of the 2024 elections, according to her analysis, she feels that the media coverage lacked genuine diversity in perspective, perpetuating elite agendas and bluntly sidelining ordinary voices and opinions that are key building a vibrant democracy. Over to you, Nande. Charles, can you please mute yourself? Nande, over to you. Please unmute.
Thank you so much, Mwanja. The media plays a vital role in any democracy, and it is tasked with informing the public and to defend the public's right to know. And in the context of these elections that just happened in South Africa, the media's role became more critical and more crucial. It was to ensure that citizens have access to accurate and unbiased information and access to hold people in power accountable. And one of the most important things when it comes to media engagement during national elections is audience interaction and viewer participation. Those things are very essential because mainstream media are the drivers of discourse in society. And in a developing country like South Africa, where many citizens are disadvantaged and rely on news for education on what is going on around the country, it is crucial for these platforms to reflect the diverse experiences of the population, more especially during the elections, and the lack of visibility of ordinary voices and women in the media highlighted the progress that is still needed within media institutions. And some outlets have been criticized for giving undue attention to sensational stories while negating substantive policy discussions. And despite the efforts from most South African media houses to provide a fair and balanced reporting of the 2024 elections, I will admit that some media coverage often lacked genuine diversity in perspective, and the narrative during the elections frequently revolved around political norms and interest and party politics rather than the broader socio-economic realities faced by ordinary South Africans. And this is particularly evident in the reliance of political analysts and commenters from academia, which limited the scope of debate and left a significant gap in the discourse about the people and their problems. A notable exception was made by News 2024. In an effort to engage with people, News 24 hosted live debates around the country where community leaders of political parties were engaging with the public. It was the News 24 Leaders Debate, and this highlighted the importance of providing ordinary people with access to political leaders in a safe space where they can lead the discourse and conversation. And this initiative should have been amplified and should be adopted by more media houses, because GBV, youth unemployment, and access to quality education should have dominated the headlines with political parties and their manifestos, them providing a solution to these problems and journalists engaging them on those issues, not journalists engaging them on their party politics during national elections. And there's also teacher shortage, there's inadequate school infrastructure, there's the digital divide that hampers learning opportunities. The media should have focused more on those important issues that are critical to the development of the country. Focusing on these issues will encourage political accountability and promote meaningful dialogue on how to address these pressing social challenges. And by providing a balanced coverage and amplifying marginalized voices, the media can help build a more inclusive and cohesive society. And the issue of sensationalism in media reporting can and does undermine the depth and the quality of discussion on social issues. And it is quite clear that the South African media did play a very important role in bridging the gap and being gatekeepers of truth and accountability between politicians and ordinary people, but there are areas that require significant improvement. The media's responsibility in a democracy is to not just only inform people, but to foster a well-rounded and inclusive public discourse. And this election cycle highlighted both the strength and the weaknesses of the media in this regard. Thank you, Mwanja.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Nande. And thank you for the views that you've shared with us in actually highlighting the importance of inclusivity when it comes to coverage by the media. Ladies and gentlemen, we've heard from different countries. We've heard from Nigeria, from Botswana, from Mozambique, and South Africa. Now, I would like to take the conversation in a sort of a different trajectory. We've spoken about the challenges when it comes to media freedom, as well as harassment and the challenges of inclusivity. I would like to now pose a question to the panelists. When it comes to promoting peace and stability, we all know that the media can actually play a very strong role in conflict resolution by providing balanced reporting, as well as highlighting peace-building efforts, and also in championing human rights, as well as actually providing the platform where there's a facilitation of dialogue between the public and conveying public concerns and governmental responses. In your experiences, can you just highlight key, because we've heard about the challenges, but in actually trying to overcome some of these challenges that have been brought to the fore, what are your key 2 or 3 tools or nuggets that you'd like to share on this platform in trying to overcome these challenges that you have highlighted and brought to the fore? I don't know if I should go in order of the speakers. I see Kate's camera is on, so I don't know if you want to comment on any key takeaways in trying to overcome some of these challenges, even as we look to building peace and strengthening democracies. Over to you, Kate.
Sure. Thanks again, Mwanja. I have to apologize. I'm a little bit sick today as well. I'm not a media practitioner in the same way that some of the other esteemed colleagues are, and I found it really interesting and difficult to hear about some of the challenges that they are experiencing in those different countries. And I'm sure that is also the case for some working in the South African sector as well. I think some of the takeaways for me are that we are, as I highlighted in my presentation, recognizing all of the challenges and the change in the landscape and the consumption of media and the technology that's available. But on the positive side, there is a lot of opportunity as well to make use of the information and the resources and accessibility that is brought by, for example, using social media to spread messages. Personally, we have found in terms of our survey projects that the ability to share and engage with users on social media has pushed us to think about how we package our survey results in ways that are much more user-friendly and accessible. And another important takeaway, I think, is that as I ended my presentation, I mentioned prospects for working more closely between civil society research organizations as some of the work that we do and the media. And I think that's been a really powerful and important experience for me personally, understanding that we have that mutual dependency and that mutual interest in finding and producing and sharing good information. So we have been able to develop some really interesting partnerships with journalists where we are able to recognize our mutual needs and our mutual constraints and the importance of developing and sharing and producing independent and robust public information, and work together to create good content, to create media articles, and help people to also increase their skills in being able to understand and report on and use public opinion data. So those are, some of the positives for me personally, and I would look forward to also hearing from the colleagues in other countries about their needs and the opportunities for collaboration and solidarity in this work that we're doing as well. Thanks, Mwanja.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kate. So you actually highlighted another media angle, the use of social media. Actually, even if the trust in social media is way down at the bottom because of the misinformation and disinformation, but there's a power as well in social media in informing the masses, and when used as a tool, there's actually power in social media in helping to strengthen democracies and upholding peace, and also the repackaging of messages thereof, as well as the role of the CSOs and working together with the media in holding powers to accountability and strengthening transparency. I see Babuluki is in red today. Babuluki, your hand is up, so we'll give the floor over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Mwanja. Please allow me to be off cam because I'm on red. I'm on red because this means war. I'm fighting for my continent. Allow me to be off camera because I think my bandwidth is low, so when I switch it on, it's going to be affecting. Yes. So in answering your question, I am glad you raised that question because it is very, very, very critical. I was privileged to be given an opportunity by a policy link with SADC last month to coordinate media communication and advocacy for the post-Malabo technical consultations in Lusaka. And during my presentation there, I mentioned one of the critical issues that you raised at the moment. Media is often misinterpreted, and media is misinterpreted because most of the time we see media as the bad guy. But I told the experts at the meeting that media is not the bad guy. Media is a key stakeholder. We studied journalism because we love our continent and we want to report on what is best for the continent. In answering your question, one of the things that I promote is solution journalism. I always, like the journalists that I always come across, I make sure that when we speak, when we raise challenges, what are we bringing to the table? If I'm saying that there is no democracy in Botswana, what am I doing to ensure that that democracy is strengthened? If I'm saying there is no peace in Botswana, what am I doing to ensure that that peace is strengthened? So I believe that it's also our responsibility as journalists to ensure that if we notice the problems, what are the solutions that we are bringing along the problems that we are seeing? So I believe that it is highly important for us to promote accountability and transparency as journalism, as journalists in the continent. And this means detailed reporting on solutions by highlighting effective responses to social, economic, and political issues. And solution journalism, as much as we hold government and institutions accountable, we also showcase what works, encouraging transparency and integrity in public service. And this also means holding the citizens and the civil societies accountable. Because if you are going to go with the, I'm sorry for using the word, the noise of the public and the civil societies, but what are they saying? What are they also bringing to the table to ensure that this problem that we see, because we are equally responsible, what are they doing to solve the solutions? And also, as a solution journalist, I believe in empowering citizens. When we empower citizens, what are we doing as journalists to provide spaces for women, to provide spaces for civil societies, to provide spaces for young people? Are we that open to, like, the letters to the editor, the phone calls, or even interviews to the civil societies, women and youth? So that's where that's what I wanted to raise to say that we are equally responsible as the media personalities. And I'm glad that I also am a media owner, because I own the African Daily Press. And my idea and my dream is to have spaces for youth, women, and the LGBTQ communities, which is a taboo in Africa. But at the end of the day, we need each other to ensure that we drive our country, our continent to the right direction. Thank you so much, Mwanja.
Thank you, Babuluki. I don't know if there's any other commentary from the floor. A technical team, is the chat open for participants to send through some comments and questions? Otherwise, I had seen Noku's hand. I don't know. Let me see if I can allow her to speak, or him. Noku, are you with us? I think she's, yeah, I can see a hand up there.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
All right, thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. I'm Noku Katom from Stellenbosch. I'm a community developer working with young people in areas of career guidance. So I wanted to thank all the presenters, and I have an issue with focusing on women and girls as a point of focus, because I think we've been focusing on women and girls for a while and neglecting boys and men. And most of the problems that I have witnessed as a community developer in the ground are caused by men. I think it's about time we empower men and boys and make that as acceptable in public. As a South African in South Africa, where we have diverse cultures and all of that, I think it's a rare situation where there are gatherings for men and women, even few initiatives that have been focusing on empowering men and boys. Men do not attend such events. So instead of focusing on the victims, inverted commas, I think we must also focus on men and women to bring the balance and make it through the media platforms, to make it okay and acceptable for men to seek for help and to be listened and to be heard. It's been overrated that men must be strong, men must be that, men must not cry. We need to bring the opposite and allow men to speak up and speak out and get involved as fathers, as boyfriends, as husbands, and just work together and bring solutions together, men and women. That's my point. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Noku, for pointing out coming out the issue of inclusivity. Let's not leave others behind, even in the media space, when we've got a key role to play in balancing perspectives and inclusivity in terms of voices. Nchimunya, I think I'll allow you to speak before I allow the panel to also respond. Nchimunya, can you take the floor?
Can you hear me?
Yes, please go on. Introduce
Thank
yourself.
you very much. My name is Nchimunya Michelo from Zambia. I'm the marketing manager for the University of Africa here in Zambia. And I'm so happy. I just wish to appreciate the panelists and also the presenters and the hosts. This has been a very, very beautiful meeting. And arising from the presentation and comment that was made by Mr. Baboloki, probably what I would just want to say is also, the media looking at the continent of Africa at large and also the international space. We talk about globally, the whole world. I think it must be consolidated in such a way that it recognizes the resources that are in each and every continent in terms of presenting them to the public. Because, for example, if I'm to speak on behalf of Africa, we are having a very, very huge population of people that do not really understand so many things that are being prepared by the United Nations and also the African Union. So if people are equipped with the agenda and also the processes that are being undertaken in order to make sure that all these agendas come into fruition, then it means people can be able to participate fully. So I think for me, the media has a very, very huge role to play in terms of them making people realize their potential and how they can, get to use what is around them, because mostly we expect what is far away from us when even what surrounds us, has got the potential to do what we are supposed to do. So I think for me, basically, this is just what I actually wanted to comment on.
Thank you very much, Nshimunya. Adam, I don't know if you've got any comments on what has been discussed thus far, and actually practical examples on trying to overcome some of these challenges.
Thank you, Mwanja.
I've
I
lost
have
you,
some
Adam.
ideas I want to share with us. Can you hear me, Mwanja? Can you hear me?
Yes, please go on.
Good. I was saying, I had you requested us to speak to solutions to some of the challenges we have highlighted earlier. And I would want to also say something as a way forward. Still speaking to the previous issue I spoke to about the role of media as peace builders through what is called peace journalism, or rather conflict-sensitive reporting. Indeed, like I said, the media can be a stakeholder in peace building. The media can be a tool for promoting inclusive societies. But for that to happen, we need to reorient and change the mindset of conventional media, thinking, which says that as journalists, we remove ourselves from what is happening from situations, and report it from a perspective that is, in other words, called impartial, being removed from what is happening on the ground as a report, as journalists. Indeed, that does not foster inclusive societies. That does not report peace building, and that's why you realize media is obsessed with reporting conflicts and violent conflicts. It's obsessed with promoting violence, and violent solutions to conflict, whereas the media can become an active peace builder, considering the power and the immense influence that the media has got in shaping public perception and opinion on issues. So indeed, the media, we have to, the solution, the way forward is to reorient the media on its approach to reporting conflict, from violence promoting to becoming peace promoters, peace builders, and this will begin by through training of journalists on peace journalism. It's only when we train journalists to see themselves as active stakeholders in promoting peace, working closely with civil society, that they will be able to really promote inclusive and peaceful societies, which is largely not the case at the moment. And finally, also, I want to speak to the issues of, civil society media collaboration. The media is an integral part of civil society, but oftentimes we don't work collaboratively. We work at cross purpose even, I would say. So the media must learn to, work with civil society and learn from civil society their skills in advocacy and peace building, so that, we will have more and more conflict-sensitive reporting on issues against the prevalent reporting, which is, focused on obsessed with violence and promoting violent resolution to conflict situations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adam. Indeed, there is more room for us to conduct training for journalists on peace journalism, actually, because the tendency, of course, is to cover breaking stories as they happen, but also being mindful to the peace building role that the media have in building peace. So yes, indeed, I agree with you that there's ample room for media to play when it comes to peace journalism and helping to build peace and vibrant democracies on the continent. And also, you pointed out also as well that there's a need for more collaboration on CSOs and media collaboration. We shouldn't see ourselves as being on the opposing end when we're actually in the same space. Hence, I'm happy that the IJR has actually started looking for more spaces to actually co-create more spaces and work together with the media, spaces such as this, in actually sharing our work, our research, our data, and our surveys, and having opportunities to work with media towards finding peaceful solutions and advocating for peace and upholding of human rights on the continent, even as we're informing the public. Yeah. Charles, unfortunately, is not able to continue. It's raining where he is. But possibly Nande, let's hear from you. Any departing thoughts? Yeah, Nande?
Yes, I feel like it's very important to go back to the basics of journalism and media. And instead of focusing on the broader issues that hinder journalists to do their job, it's very important to go back to the local communities and start being journalists and being agents of change there. Because if we empower journalists and community people and community leaders, then it's very easy to have an influence in the government and to be also to be able to protect journalists, because we can't expect journalists to be agents of change and be peace journalists when there are laws and there are countries that are actively working against journalists. So it's very important to make sure that the background and the foundation of what journalism is and why there is journalism and media is instilled in journalists and also community people. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't see any questions coming through the chat. So if there are no more questions, maybe from our panelists, are there any other parting comments before we draw to a close? All right, so, all right, Babuloki, yes, over to you.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm going to be brief with my parting statement. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and I'm excited to have been part of this, and I also would love if this was really in person, because I think right now we are missing out from. I know Charles is very, very resourceful, and he has gone through a lot in terms of covering the situation in Mozambique, and we really needed to learn a lot from him. But in parting statement, I would suggest, like we said, Mwanja, to have a regional training for journalists, and then also the civic society, the youth movements, and women movements. Also, in probably going to what Nande said about empowering the male child, I feel, yes, it is important to do that, but at the moment we are still struggling with equality. And so far, I've actually diverted myself from gender equality. I'm going for gender equity, because for the longest time, as a male child, for instance, myself, I've had a lot of opportunities that my female colleagues are not able to access. And it will not be fair for them to be given the same competing platform as me. They have to be given a competitive edge, in the sense that I can give you an example about the Botswana parliament, for instance. We have only 7 members of parliament as female out of the 57 members. And it has been the trend from 1966, when Botswana gained independence. And if we don't go through the equity way, women are still going to be less represented in our parliaments, in our municipalities, in our councils. And therefore, we should really do something about ensuring that they are given a platform. I'm not saying that we should just hand positions to women on a silver platter. But what we should do, we should be, let's say, for instance, say for 10 constituencies, it will be women against women, no male competitor. And I think that will be able to ensure that women are represented. And then lastly, I'm going to refer everyone here to the YouTube by Chimamanda Adichie, the danger of the danger of reporting a single story, the danger of a single story. Let's go to that and hear what she's saying, and we are going to learn a lot from there, because I learned quite a lot, and it is quite helpful in terms of helping us journalists who are trying to report on peace, democracy, and inclusion. Thank you, Mwanja.
Oh, thank you, Babuloki, for those parting remarks. Yes, indeed, we've got a long way ahead of us, and especially when it comes to peace journalism, I think it's one area that has been somewhat neglected, and we really need to bring it to the fore. And look at the resources at hand and how we can help in terms of building capacity in this area. And of course, there's also the gender dynamics that come to the fore that we've barely begin to scratch in this platform. But let's look forward to more opportunities where we can have these conversations, as well as not just having conversations for the sake of having conversation, but in terms of sharing examples, practical examples and lessons from across the continent as well, in order to enrich ourselves with the capacities as well as learn from one another. So it's all about strengthening one another and also finding more spaces where we can begin to shape public opinion with a broader perspective that what we're fighting for actually is peace and democracy and inclusivity all across the continent in our societies. Ladies and gentlemen, we're drawing now to a close. And well, I'd like to thank you everyone for having participated in the Peace and Democracy in Africa Media Perspectives webinar. I want to extend our deepest gratitude to all our esteemed speakers for sharing their valuable insights and experiences in your areas of work, and also to our contributors who have shed light on the critical role that media has in shaping peace and democracy. In spite of the challenges that do exist, we continue to forge ahead. And also the discussions, of course, have underscored the necessity of responsible journalism and the power of media to influence positive change. To participants, thank you very much. I see quite a few names that I recognize from our networks. Thank you for taking the time to join us. Thank you for also your active engagement and thought-provoking questions and comments and support. Your participation has enriched our dialogue and highlighted the collective effort needed to support and sustain democratic values in Africa. A big thank you as well to the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation, the communications team. I didn't pull this webinar by myself. There's a whole big team working behind the scenes, the IT team, as well as the communications team. Thank you very much for ensuring that this webinar has been a success. As we conclude, let's carry forward the lessons and experiences shared today in striving for a media landscape that promotes peace and accountability as well as inclusivity. Together, we can shape a more vibrant and democratic and peaceful Africa. Thank you once again for joining us, and we look forward to continue this important conversation in future forums. And so everyone stay safe and keep advocating for peace and democracy. Thank you.